Hey, welcome! Today, we're going to dive into something really cool. This idea that our dreams can actually be a kind of blueprint for how our minds work. And it all kicks off with one simple but pretty deep question. I know, it sounds a little out there, right? But stick with me, because it's the key to this entire explainer. What if all those bizarre dreams you have about factories, and come on, we've all had them, what if they're not random at all? What if it's actually your mind running a full-on diagnostic test on its own operating system? And it all centers on this one super specific, kind of weird dream image. A factory making traditional Iranian bread, but it's located inside a modern shopping mall. This strange little scene is actually the final piece of a huge puzzle, and it shows us a massive shift in how a person's mind learns to manage stress and create meaning. So to really get what's going on here, we're going to use a psychological framework from our source material. It's called the Brain Kinematics Model, or just BKM for short. You can think of it as our special decoder ring for the symbols our minds create. Okay, so according to BKM, a factory in a dream isn't really about your 9-to-5 job. No, it's something called a meaning production field. It's like this symbolic workshop where your mind takes in all the raw materials of your life, all the stress, the random info, the emotions, and it processes all that stuff into something that actually makes sense. So why do these dreams even happen? Well, BKM suggests it's your mind running a kind of internal systems audit. It's stress testing its own production lines, trying to figure out how to balance all the small, chaotic moments of life with the need to feel stable overall. And this is especially common for people who are natural systems thinkers. You know, people who are always trying to figure out how all the pieces fit together. All right, so let's get into our main case study, this healthy Sangak bread factory. This dream is a perfect picture of a mental system that is absolutely firing on all cylinders, and it's working in a way that might really surprise you. Let's break down these symbols, because they're fascinating. The Sangak bread, that's not just food. It represents daily, life-sustaining meaning. It's spiritual nourishment. The factory being inside a mall, that's about finding a way to do something authentic and real, even when you're surrounded by the fragmented, superficial modern world. The female supervisor represents this calm, emotional self-regulation, not some boss yelling at you. And the chaos? Well, that's the secret sauce. And this is the real mind-bending part of the healthy system. The chaos, where all the workers are kind of doing their own thing, it isn't a bug, it's a feature. The BKM has a fancy term for it, elastic micro-oscillation. But what it really means is that all those flexible, uncoordinated little actions are what allow the whole system to be so resilient and adaptive. That local disorder is actually a resource. But, to really understand health, you gotta look at its opposite. So now, let's flip the coin and explore a totally different case. A factory that's super busy, that is fundamentally broken. Now, what's really important here is that the broken system isn't empty or shut down. Oh no, it's humming with activity. It's noisy, it's frantic. The problem isn't a lack of energy. It's a complete breakdown in coherent flow. Nothing meaningful is actually getting produced. This table just lays it all out so clearly. Look at the chaos. In one, it's productive. In the other, it's just fragmented noise. Supervision goes from emotional to coercive. Think supportive guide versus yelling boss. And this is huge. The dreamer's role changes from just a calm observer to a stressed-out fixer who has to jump in. And the after effect. You wake up feeling calm versus feeling exhausted and anxious. So the whole thing boils down to the function of that chaos. In the healthy factory, all those little messy actions add up to a beautiful final product, the bread. It's like a jazz band where everyone's improvising, but it creates this amazing, coherent music. In the broken factory, the chaos is just noise. The workers are arguing, their actions are pointless. It's like an orchestra where everyone is playing a totally different song. The disorder just breeds more disorder. And these symbols are so powerful because we all recognize the feelings behind them. Looping conveyor belts? Come on, that's rumination, right? Your mind just stuck on repeat. A shouting supervisor? That's your inner critic going into overdrive. Products piling up but never getting out the door? That's the very definition of burnout, where you feel like you're working so hard but none of it feels meaningful. So the big question is, how does the mind even get to that healthy Sangak factory? Well, the source material shows it wasn't some lucky accident. It was actually the final stop on a long, long developmental journey. It's a journey that shows us how our own minds can mature, how we can move away from rigid control and towards a deep internal trust. This journey happened in phases. First, there was engineering control, a really rigid, anxious state where the dreamer felt like they had to manage every single detail. Then things moved into an optimization phase, where it was getting better, but the system was still pretty fragile. And finally, the mind got to organic production, a self-regulating, flexible system where trust has completely replaced that old need for control. And just look at how the dreamer's own role inside the dream changed over time. They went from being the fixer, the one person responsible for making the whole thing work, to just being the observer, a trusting participant who can come back and visit the factory knowing that it runs perfectly fine all by itself. I mean, that's a massive psychological leap.
So let's zoom out for a second and bring all of this together. This case study isn't just a cool dream analysis. It's a really powerful metaphor for our own inner worlds.
Because really, this journey from control to trust isn't just something that happens when we're asleep. It applies to everything: how we approach our creative projects, our work, our relationships, our own mental health. It's this universal pattern of what it means to grow and mature. So this is the question I really want to leave you with. When you look inside your own mind, what kind of factory do you see running in there? Is it run by that shouting, coercive supervisor who demands perfect, rigid order? Or have you learned to trust its productive, chaotic, beautifully self-organizing energy? And we'll end on this one really powerful principle from the Brain Kinematics Model: global coherence. That feeling of being whole, of having it all together, it doesn't come from forcing every single little part of yourself to be perfect and rigid. It actually emerges when you allow for flexibility, for a little play, for some of that productive chaos. Definitely something to think about.